Other partners of Solarian Games,
I'm Jason.
and I'm Peter. And on this week's episode, will D&D's new actual play series suffer from the Mercer effect? Dungeon crawler Carl is breaking records. Jackson, Illinois, character questionnaire. Warhammer news, and Greyhawk returned. But what kind of Greyhawk?
What
And
indeed?
yes, what indeed?
What
kind of
indeed?
Greyhawk
What
indeed?
kind of Greyhawk will we be getting?
All right, let's
Let's
start with some D and
yeah,
D
let's.
actual play.
All right, so all right. First up, we have here. If anybody's listening on audio, we have here on the screen the cast of the new actual play from Wizards of the Coast. Beautiful photo. Everybody's looking intense, like they're ready
Intense,
to
yeah.
play some D&D, which is great. So what Wizards has done, they have announced via Variety. All right, so right off the bat, let me before we go anywhere else,
Variety.
Variety. That should tell you something right off the bat about what we're about to be talking about. There is no Dragon magazine anymore, so it couldn't be announced there. But there's got to be a nerdy place to do this. But no, Variety, Hollywood's paper of record. This is where they have announced that they are doing a new actual play show, and it's going to be called Dungeon Masters.
It's
Which,
very
by the way,
creative.
no, honestly, great name. I love
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
I
All right.
really do because yeah, all the Critical Role. What is that? I mean,
Right.
you had now we know what it is, but when it first came out, yeah, it's a clever pun, but you don't get the pun until you see it written down. Somebody who's never heard of D&D doesn't know what that means. This is pretty good. Anybody who's even heard of D&D is going to know what this means. The only people who are going to get confused are people who are into BDSM. So we should be fine. We should be fine. And Wizards owns, I don't know if they own the trademark to the word Dungeon Master, but they should. They probably do.
Okay.
So awesome. Already great. So we know the whole history about how Critical Role kind of made D&D bigger. How much bigger, how much of it was their responsibility, I don't know. But I think it's pretty fair to say that Critical Role was a big part of the resurgence that we've had in D&D. And there's questions about how good that was and how bad that was. Everybody's got an opinion on it. I don't think there's any objective answer to it. But the facts are that Critical Role has sort of outgrown their creche, and they're now, they've left the Wizards of the Coast embrace. They're no longer playing. Well, I think they're still playing D&D this season, but they're moving on to their own game, Daggerheart. So they're basically setting themselves up now as a rival to Wizards of the Coast, rather than as a helpmeet. So obviously, Wizards got a lot of benefit out of having Critical Role, and now they need something. And so it's not unusual for them to be doing this because Wizards actually started the actual play thing before Critical Role existed. And I'll talk about that. But the question that's coming up right now is, what is this new actual play going to mean for the hobby and the game and the way people see D&D and the way people play D&D?
Right.
Because for all that Critical Role did to expand the audience, the fundamental thing that they did differently from WotC's original, so WotC's original show was called Dice Camera Action.
I don't remember that.
This was decade ago, maybe more. It goes back a ways. I'd have to go back and check. But Dice Camera Action was the original actual play, and it still has fans. All the episodes are still up. You can watch them. It ended up getting canceled, both literally and figuratively, because there was a sex scandal.
Oh,
So
why?
yeah, I don't really follow all of it, but basically one of the guys on there was cheating on his wife with one of the women on the show. So the two of them both got kicked off the show, not just from some moral panic thing, because I mean, what you do in your private relationships is really your own business. It had more to do with the fact that he was also being a sex creep, I guess, to other people, and she was. I don't know. I'm not even going to go into the whole thing because I don't know the
Right.
details of it. The point is, it got canceled. But if you go back and you watch the actual episodes of Dice Camera Action, it was a lot more true to what a D&D game is really like. It was focused on the playing. It wasn't focused so much on the theatrics and the voices and the look at me kind of main character energy. It was really, it was a better version of what you might see at your own table, but it was pretty recognizable.
Right.
And then Critical Role came on, and it was all Hollywood folks. It was basically voice actors and people who, you know, theater kids who wanted to show how they played D&D. Totally valid, totally legit. Also, it got so big that then the people who were coming into the hobby through watching that kind of had this idea that D&D was almost an improv skit. You know,
Right.
the actual playing, I might be being a little bit unfair to Critical Role here because I'm not personally a fan. And I don't mean I don't like it. I mean, I'm not a fan as in I don't watch it regularly.
Yeah.
You know, I have nothing against it. I'm not a fan in that kind of way.
You're not an anti-fan either.
No. I mean, no problem with it. You know, when they were first getting started, I actually, you know, met and went out to dinner with a bunch of them when we were working with Satine on things. Everybody was super nice. I liked them. It was cool. Yeah, it's all great. It's just different from what people expect. You know, from what people get from a regular D&D game. If you hear any sounds in the background, our kitties have found the toys, and they want you to know that they have done a powerful kill.
Right.
So
God, did they take down an alligator or something? What the hell?
they took down easily an alligator, maybe even an entire little stuffed lamb.
Okay.
You know, Sherry and
Those-
lamb chop, or
Yeah, those stuffed lambs, boy. Woo.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's the background noise. This is real life, folks. We live it raw. Back to the story. The question is, what's the new Dungeon Masters going to be like? Is it going to face the Mercer effect? And the Mercer effect is kind of something people have been saying about, you know, where people get into D&D and then they play it for the first time and they're like, why isn't this like Matt Mercer? Why don't you do voices like he does? Why don't you, my local DM that I'm just friends with, do amazing voices like this professional character actor with 20 years of experience as a voice actor? Why aren't you as good as him?
Oh, okay. So that's where he comes from. So I was kind of I
Oh,
was
he is
wondering.
an actor.
I got
Yeah.
you. I got you.
Yeah, I mean, look at that. Look at that face. That's the face of an actor.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
one of the things I was doing as I was going through this, you know, kind of thinking about it, was looking at different videos of people talking about this and that and the other thing about D&D and these. And I hate to be such a stereotyper, but I could tell instantly when I started watching a video from someone I hadn't seen before which side of the hobby they came from. You know, I could see the nerds there in their completely mismatched outfits and poor grooming and, you know, absolute. I mean, I'm being stereotypical, but, you know.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
And,
The real nerds.
and
man.
I'm just,
Come on,
I mean, let's
our
just be
crew.
honest. We're looking at some beautiful people here.
Yeah.
You know, I don't mean that we're necessarily looking at people who look like supermodels. I'm saying everyone in this photo that we're looking at knows how to stand in front of a camera.
Right. These are not people I've played games with.
No. I mean, if one of these people had been in my game, we'd all be intimidated, and probably half the table would be trying to impress them or something. You know, nothing. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Good for them. You know, this is the careers they've chosen, and they're good at it.
Sure.
And the woman who's doing the dungeon mastering, Jasmine Bular or Buller. I apologize for not getting the pronunciation right, but I've seen her on D&D stuff before. She really knows her stuff.
Okay, good.
She's gonna be a great DM. She's also really good on camera. You know, that's what Wizards wants. This is what they're going for. So the question is, what's it going to do? So Matt Mercer himself has kind of pushed back against the idea that it's maybe something negative. You know, Matt Mercer said this. Brendan Lee Mulligan have said, you know, that the real Mercer effect, you know, inverted brackets, is about bringing more people to the table and bringing a creative, positive, collaborative community, not raising the bar for personal performances. That's a good point.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously the point they're going to make. Matt Mercer's not going to say, "I'm ruining the hobby, everyone."
Right.
He's not.
Right.
But the question is, what does it really do for the game if people come to your table and they expect you to be as good as these trained actors?
Right.
Does anything get lost? I don't know. What do you
Yeah,
think?
not only that, a lot, when we make games for our crew or for, when we go to a convention or something like that, it's not our full-time job. So we don't have the time to put in to create all the craziness they do for their adventure, all the prep
Hmm.
and all, and all that kind of stuff. So, we can't rise to that occasion. And most people, I mean, I can't think of anyone who DMs, I mean, other than these celebrities who DM, professionally. So you can't expect that level out of like a regular person. You know
Right.
what I mean? It's not realistic.
Well, I've talked about my friend Gabe before, who's a professional DM.
Mhm.
And it's funny to say it that way because Gabe and I have been friends for years. I won't bust him by saying how many.
Right.
We started out being friends because we were working in corporate design world together. So it's not like he came up as an actor, but since he started a business where he DMs for kids in an after school program, he just became that good because it is his full time job.
Right.
So you can do it without being an actor,
Right.
but I don't know. Maybe it's good to have an exemplar, to have something that says this is how good a game could be, and
Right.
let people just try to pick up the pieces of that and say, okay, I don't do voices, but I can certainly do this other thing they do, or
Hey,
I don't do whatever.
let's put that in another perspective, right? If you take, because I watch a lot of food influence, I like to cook, right?
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
I watch a lot of food influencers, and some of these guys are chefs or like professional chefs and stuff, and they make these amazing dishes. Well, that doesn't stop me from trying to do my best,
right,
right? And I'm not
right.
as good as them, but I learn a lot from them, and it has really upped my game. Like I don't know. I just made some fried chicken the other night, I watched binging with
Yeah,
Babish, and he did this whole thing on how to make the best fried chicken. And my
yeah.
fried chicken was like next level. I was like, God damn, that's awesome.
Yeah,
So
you know
yeah,
what?
so
I
maybe it
totally
helps.
agree. One of my favorite shows is Grand Designs, the show
Mhm.
where they are always looking at people's amazing house builds that they do from scratch, and they'll spend years on the build, and the show will come back 2 years later and see what they did. I don't have the resources to do that, but I like picking up some tips,
Sure.
So
Right.
what the heck?
Yeah.
We will see. Anyway, I'm looking forward to seeing the new Dungeon Masters. Very easy to remember the name.
Yeah.
Looks like a great cast. Can't wait to see what they do, and hope that it actually makes people's games better and doesn't make people feel inadequate.
Right. All right. For our next one, we have talked about Dungeon Crawler Carl before. I know. But look, man, this is news, right? This
No,
is a
no, no.
big.
It's good because now finally there's a book that's worse than Ready Player One. It's good because if you're living in a world where you feel like, yeah, I know 50 Shades of Grey is bad, but at least it makes Twilight look better. Now you can say at least this makes Ready Player One look better.
Anyway, all right. So in case you've been living under a rock and you don't know who Dungeon Crawler Carl is, it's created
You
by a guy
lucky,
named Matt
lucky, lucky person.
Dinneman. And it is the cornerstone of lit RPG genre, which neither Jason or I like very much. Um, and it utilizes video game like mechanics, leveling up stats and inventory as a core part of their reality.
It
So
basically you're reading a book and they tell you how about the game they're playing. It's
yeah,
it's like it's like watching a Twitch streamer play their game, only you're reading about it.
right, right. And it's like fourth wall type shit where the main character of the story is like
Carl.
Carl is like a regular human. It's pulled into a D&D style adventure, due to I'm not going to go into all the reasons
I,
why.
I would
Read
even
the
say it
books
gets
if you
kind of
want
pulled
to.
into like a roguelike almost.
Yeah.
It's just sort of it's a dungeon crawl.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole thing with like aliens that have attacked the earth, and there's a dungeon
Yeah,
that
but
all
it's
the
all
people are
it's all
going
set
into.
dressing. That's all set
Right.
dressing.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, there's an RPG out now. This is going to make you even madder. The campaign is on BackerKit.
No, you know what? I'm not mad about there being
Okay.
an RPG. That's probably what there should have been in the first place.
Oh, okay, I got you. All right, cool.
The RPG at least makes sense.
It hit its $250,000 goal in under a minute.
Okay, yeah, fair.
It is currently the third biggest TTRPG crowdfunder in history, and it's just trailing behind Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere and Avatar Legends. But the predictions at this point are, because it's at 5.5 million. That was this morning.
Oh, it's gonna go farther.
Yeah, it's gonna go further than that, right? Well, they think it might even take over. It might take the number one spot.
I'm sure it will.
Yeah.
I'm sure it will. Yeah.
It has something interesting called a season pass for like ongoing digital content. I don't know what that means.
So they're already thinking ahead to how they're gonna monetize this thing with
Microtransactions.
and microtransactions. And of course.
Yay. It's on BackerKit. It ends May 15th. And the BackerKit is interesting. It's 2 games in one. So if you're looking on the screen, if you're watching live, there's a box on the left hand of the picture on the right. On the left hand of the picture on the right, there's a box that says Unstoppable, and the other one says Dungeon Crawler Carl. They're actually two different games, but it's the same BackerKit. And so when you back this, you can back one or the other, or do what they call a double bill and back both of them.
Okay.
So I guess.
So what is it? Is it the box set versus the hardcover, or are they very, very different?
No, they're very, very different. The box set is a card game.
So of course it's a card game.
Right,
How could they miss out on the chance to have a collectible card game?
Card game, right. So the core mechanics for the RPG, it uses a D20 skill-based system. It's traditional D&D stats, but
good.
It took wisdom out.
Well, of course it did, because you can't possibly have wisdom and like this thing.
In the book lore, wisdom is a secret stat controlled by the AI that players cannot manipulate.
Wait. What AI?
In the books.
Okay.
In the story, there's
let me be fair. I didn't read far enough to find out about that. I got about halfway through the first book, and it was wintertime. I was out of kindling. I was just like, whatever, I'll just burn it. It's fine.
That's fun. Apparently, there's some kind of AI thing in there that's controlling the dungeon that he's in or whatever.
Okay.
So and this is another one of those ones. I think I can't remember the other game we talked about that did this, but the game master doesn't roll any dice. The game master, there's difficulties, and it's the players roll all the dice. Game master's not rolling any dice at all, which is kind of cool. I like that.
Well, it's fun to roll the dice. The players want to roll as many as they can. That's probably cool.
Yeah, I dig it. The core book features over 30 playable races and a massive roster of classes, which they said that was done on purpose to have just like this massive plethora of things to choose from.
Can you play the cat?
I don't think you can play the cat.
The cat, maybe. I don't mind the cat. The cat's all right.
Yeah. I wouldn't let anybody play the cat because I would make them invincible in my game. So I'm
that's
not letting
true.
anybody
Yep.
play. Not letting
You're
anybody
a
be
good
invincible.
point. Same here. Yep.
So Unstoppable, the card game. It's a deck building game, and there's extensive merchandise, minis, dice, journals. Here, let me do this. Wait a minute, that's the books. Hold on.
Mm-hmm.
So these, all right, just real quick, if you're watching the show live, these are the 8 books that he's put out. Those are
such
novels.
good covers. What a waste of beautiful covers. The designer who did those covers is great. What a waste of talent.
And I bet you love these covers better than the self-published covers, which had more like traditional art.
Oh, I don't think I saw them.
These are cool. These are cool designs.
Yeah, I'm not hardcore enough to have seen those.
But here's the kind of stuff that you get. Like the top one is the picture on the left, I think is I don't know which is which. But
there's all the cards on the left. There's all the game others. No, it's all cards everywhere.
You got cards. You got
dice. I'm confused.
You got I know this is
okay. I see. On the left, so we got the book. We've got the Game Master's screen with really cool artwork. I mean, this is absolute crowdfunding bait. This is exactly the kind of stuff that people like to back. I get it. You look at this and you're like, look at all the goodies. There are a lot of goodies here.
Right.
Now, I don't know about these custom dice that we see over here on the right for the card game. I hope they're not required.
Yeah, I don't know. Custom dice required in a game, in my opinion, is always a bad idea. But
but they do look like standard polyhedrals, so maybe it's just cool dice.
I've never run $1 million Kickstarter before, so
or 5 million or a 10 million.
or 50,000. Anyway, so let's see what else is there here. Okay, so there are some concerns with this though, because they've talked about some of the design aspects of it. The biggest concern, and this came from the chats, people like chatting back and forth.
Yeah.
The floor number mechanic is what they call it, and this is it's to simulate the lethality of the world. The world dungeon's the thing that they go into.
Right, because the whole point is, for anybody who hasn't read the book, again, you lucky person. At the beginning of the book, he rips off Douglas Adams shamelessly by having the world end. And, then only a few people survive, very, very small number of them. Basically, anybody who was staying inside of a building or something, or was outside of a building.
Outside of it, because they collapsed all the buildings, I think.
Right. If you're outside of a building, you survived. And then the whole world gets transformed into this big mega dungeon.
Right.
Yeah.
So, there are 18 levels to the dungeon, and that number is added to the target number for skill checks. So if you're on level 5, you're going to add 5 to all the skill checks for the monsters.
Fair. Yeah,
right?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I get it. That's kind of clever.
So the pro argument for that is it perfectly mirrors the unfair lethal mega dungeon vibe of the books. So it keeps you keeps you in line with the books. It keeps the stakes high so players never feel truly safe. The con on that, and this is one I agree with, and I want to talk just a little bit on this with you about it, is what they call the math treadmill. And it's like as things get harder, as you get better, things get harder. So nothing ever changes for you. It never feels like anything changes. Right. You never feel like you're doing anything, because the second you get better, the bad guy gets better. And it's just like, well, what's the point? I'm like, I never feel any more powerful.
I'll play devil's advocate for this, or angel's advocate. Okay. I don't really know which one I'm playing at this point. But if you look at what game, I'm pretty sure this is aimed primarily at a Gen Z and younger audience. And if you look at the kind of games that generation has grown up with, that's pretty much the mechanic that people are used to in video games. You advance, and then the difficulty advances. So you feel like you're going somewhere with things, but you're not really. Well, even D&D is like that. The more powerful you get, the bigger the monsters get.
Yeah, but here's the thing. If you're traveling all over and you're not in this mega dungeon where you have to keep going level after level, you're going to run into stuff that you're actually going to feel powerful against from time to time, right? You're not always on the edge of your seat every single encounter.
But if you look at what's happened to gaming in the mainstream, mobile gaming, basically look at the moment when Apple introduced in-app purchases. And of course, Android did the same thing. I honestly don't know which one did it first. I feel like they probably happened about the same time. But in any case, when in-app purchases happened, suddenly there was a completely new incentive for game makers on mobile games and video games to say, rather than making a game that is about providing you, well, in the first generation of video games, it was about getting the high score. And then in the next generations, it became things like exploring and unlocking new things and that sort of stuff. And now it's really about just buying your next level. You're always trying to, you can get new features, you can get new things. Here's your skill trees. Don't forget to get the subscription so you don't have to see ads to get the new skill tree. Right. And that's kind of what this is playing to. So it sounds like I'm being cynical and hating on it, but in fact, I'm saying for their purposes, that makes perfect sense.
Right.
And even for the purposes, the whole thing here, I have to be a little bit kind to them, because if we're thinking about a 13-year-old picking this up, I think a 13 or 14-year-old picking up Dungeon Crawler Carl is probably going to love the book.
Oh, yeah. Because
remember the Choose Your Own Adventure books?
Oh my God, yeah.
We all have such nostalgia for them.
Right back there.
Yeah, they're cool, right? We have such nostalgia for them. But if you actually pick one up and read it, they're garbage.
Yeah. I mean,
they're utter garbage.
They were great when I was 12.
We loved them then. This is garbage. 12-year-olds are going to love it now. Yeah. So, good for them. I don't want to have anything to do with it. I'm not 12. But good for them. I think they're doing the right thing.
Well, here's another one that I know you're going to want to talk about. So there's a big problem with brand confusion.
Yeah, that one's funny.
The game is using the abbreviation DCC. We all know what that is. And then they're also using the red and yellow. Now,
Dungeon Crawl Classics.
it said even the font colors red and yellow are similar, but
Well, I mean, red and yellow just kind of go together.
Well, not only that, but they're the most enticing colors. Like that's why every one of your fast food joints has red and yellow in the
Well,
logo.
red, black, and white were, but then some group in the 1930s over in Germany screwed that one up.
Kind of fucked. Yeah. But no, red and yellow are they're the most attractive colors right now. So you can't blame anybody for using that.
I really can't hate anybody about color schemes because this is something that I don't know what's wrong with my brain about this, but every time I look at a color spectrum, I'm always like, I feel like there's something missing. Like, should there be more colors?
Color. Yeah, I agree.
That just doesn't seem like we have enough colors. I don't know what that is.
Well, Chase, it's because you lay out and design stuff. I lay out and design stuff, and I'm always running out. Like if I want to use different colors and stuff, I'm always running out. I'm always like,
yeah. Like, is this really the full visible spectrum of light?
Like you can go with different shades and all, but there are times you're just like, well, I've used 6 of the freaking colors. I don't want to use that 7th color. I want where's color 8, 9, and 10? I want to use one of those.
That's why, you know what? I bet you Terry Pratchett felt the same way because in the disc world, there's this extra color. They call it the color of magic, octarine.
Right.
And I think he was always going, I just knew there had to be more colors out there.
Right.
So yeah, their font colors are like Dungeon Crawl Classics. I feel bad for Dungeon Crawl Classics because the fact is, in the mainstream, people are going to be like, why did they call it Dungeon Crawl Classics? It's copying Dungeon Crawler Carl.
Oh my God. Yeah. They're the same people who are like, watch Star Wars for the first time and like, oh, look at all this stuff he stole. No.
On a complete side note, is it hard? It's hard for me to say Dungeon Crawler Carl. I have to really. Is that hard? That's a hard word to say.
Yeah, Dungeon Crawler Carl. It's like
I can't do it. I can't do it.
Yeah.
That's why this is your story this week.
That's enough about DCC. Let's move on to something a little more fun.
This is cool. I love this. All right, I'm actually going to hop over to Timothy's blog here. So one of my favorite blogs, Timothy Brannon. Oh, actually, you know what? Hold on, I'm looking at the wrong blog here. Give me just 1 second. Okay, so Timothy Brannon has this great blog called The Other Side. We've had him here on the show. Timothy, we want to get you back on again because you're just cool. Mm-hmm. And he wrote something last week that just kind of stood out to me, and I wanted to go into it a little bit.
Right.
So if you go to look for The Other Side blog, just Google it. He did a thing about character questionnaires, and he is running a campaign for this game called Night Shift. Have you seen it? Do you know the game?
Yeah. I know it's a horror game.
Yeah, and it's right up your alley. It's horror, urban fantasy, all that cool stuff, right? And the players in his campaign, they're playing teenagers, and in the world of the 80s. So he was kind of facing this challenge, which is, how do I get players who are well past their teens to kind of get back into that mindset of being a teenager? And how do I get the younger players who might still be in their teens or in their 20s to get their heads into the world of the 80s? Mm-hmm. These are both very challenging issues. And you can do some hand waving. He called it hand wave 'em. I like that.
Hand wave 'em.
Where the reality of the game gives way to the reality of the time.
Right.
But, an example is if you've got a 21-year-old playing your game and part of it is, don't forget to look for a payphone. They're never going to think of that.
Right.
They've never seen a payphone in their life.
Right.
It's just not in their heads. And then, if you got somebody who's 50 playing, it's hard for them to remember. We can say we remember being teens, but you're a very different person. Your brain hasn't even developed yet.
Right.
So what he did was he came up with, sorry, what's happening back there? I've left some dice on the table behind me, so Franklin is rolling dice right now. So
he's playing along.
Yeah, he's playing along. So in addition, can you hear that?
Yeah, it's like whack, whack.
I want to go see what he's rolled. This
Just
is
tell him he's
great.
not allowed to play Dungeon Crawler Crawl.
Yeah, well, I think he's playing Night Shift right now. So he's like, look, I wasn't around in the 80s. I'm a cat. What do I know?
Right.
Um, so what he did was he came up with a thing called a character questionnaire to give the players a chance to think about their characters in a group and what that character is like as a teen in 1985. So he was kind of thinking about like back when he was in school, he took these developmental psychology classes and learned a lot of things about where your brain is as a teenager. For example, one of the things is that when you're a teenager, you kind of feel like you're on stage all the time. Like
Oh,
everybody's
I know.
looking at you.
I know I did.
Yeah. You know, you are the main character. Everybody's looking at you, everything you do. And as adults, hopefully, you know, we kind of get past that.
Yes.
But the importance of things to you, you know, your hair cut going wrong is about equivalent to nuclear winter
Yeah.
in its
pretty much.
importance, you know.
Right.
So what he did was he came up with this questionnaire and it breaks it down into some things about them, their favorites, their home life, their weekend life, their communication, their secrets, archetypes. And he doesn't have people write these out first. First, they roll up their characters. And then they fill in not the whole questionnaire, and I'm not going to read the whole questionnaire, but they pick out the parts that they think, you know, they can really kind of relate to.
Yeah, because if you're watching this, it's not these 7 questions. It's way more than this.
It's long, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it starts out with some things like, hey, what is this teen known for at school? How are they trying to redefine themselves? What are their favorite classes? Who notices them and why? That kind of stuff.
Right.
Then what are some of their favorites? And this is really good for getting you into the mindset of the 80s. You know, what's always in their Walkman? Okay, 21-year-old, go find out what a Walkman is.
Right.
Favorite movie, TV show, clothes, colors, drink, food. What's their poster on their bedroom wall? What store do they always go into at the mall? Hey, 21-year-old, let me tell you what a mall is.
Right. Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And it goes on and on like this. You know, what's their home life? How much privacy do they have in their room? And it's really just something to kind of have fun with and get to know. And he put in a few examples, which are kind of neat. And then talked about setting up the mixtape. And then, of course, about trying to explain to some of the younger players what a mixtape is.
Yeah.
But I just love it. I think it's neat. I've never tried doing anything like this in a game. It's really appropriate to his, but I think this would be really good for sort of a session 0 for any game. So yeah, that's just kind of my question to people is if you did a character questionnaire like this, what would you do for yours? And sorry, I just saw Brian. Hey, Brian, he says, that's how Franklin rolls.
Right.
It is. It is how he rolls. So yeah, I love it. I think it's cool.
All right. So go check out the other side.
Yes, the other side is the blog of Timothy Brannon, and y'all should be reading it because it's cool.
So I'm going to keep this one short because the only news of this story is pretty much the announcement. So this guy Gav Thorpe, is a veteran Warhammer author and designer.
Nice.
He is developing a new untitled skirmish war game.
Cool.
And if you're not familiar with skirmish is generally whenever you see that term, that generally means it's sort of like a miniatures or board type game, but it also has character play in it. So it's usually a hybrid of those two things. Like our game More Blood is a skirmish game.
Yeah.
And it said that after being the premise of the game is after being evicted from their ancestral home by a dragon, various dwarven factions are living in a temporary city. Because the dragon destroyed all the paperwork, proving the lines of succession, a multi-sided civil war has broken out to determine the rightful king.
Cool.
So you're basically different tribes of dwarves fighting each other over who's going to be the king after you've been deposed by a dragon. So kind of cool. And he said, yeah, it's basically a turf war, you know, so scenarios are defined by the specific terrain on the table, like a tavern or memorial garden, which provides, you know, unique objectives and rules. It'll come with, it uses D6 for combat resolution and cards for initiative. So that's easy. If you're going to use regular D6s and like poker cards, which you could do, You don't really have to, you wouldn't have to buy any of that. Everybody's got that.
Yeah.
And then he says, NPC interaction. Thorpe plans to include non-combat miniature figures like bakers or flower girls who can act as spies or
That's
secondary
awesome.
objectives. Yeah,
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it says it's in the early development. It's currently in the notebook stage.
Cool.
But Thorpe is focusing on refining the core gameplay loop before expanding the narrative. And there is no retail product planned yet. Like, they doesn't know what that's going to look like at all. However, he is going to share his rules on his Patreon. So
Nice.
if you want to get an early look at this, and I'll tell you, because we have one, it's free this month. Go take a look. You can download everything you want. But for his Patreon, which are probably similar to ours, we put out beta rules and stuff like that to get people's input, and see what they think. It's like, hey, we're thinking about maybe doing this. What do you think of this? And if people are like, oh, I hate it, we'll be like, okay, great, we're not doing that. Well, but if people love it, then that's cool. And then he said it's going to be miniature agnostic, even though it's inspired by a specific range. The rules are designed with any dwarf miniatures.
Cool.
So yeah, that's.
So I can bring my Disney miniatures.
Sure, why not? Yeah.
I would.
Yeah, it's like Sleepy says.
Yeah, you know what? I'll bring my Disney miniatures, and then Kevin Borup can show up with his Smurf miniatures, and we'll go at it.
Yeah, you have a tribe of Smurfs.
Yeah,
that are maybe they were actually dwarf. They're blue dwarf type of dwarf.
Yeah, why not? Let's do it.
Sure. All right, let's go to our last story. This is a good one. You'll like this.
Okay, so cool. Greyhawk is returning. We all know that, and there's lots of cool news around Greyhawk these days, including the fact that Luke Gygax is working on Melf's Guide to Greyhawk. I think it was called something like that. But there's a lot of talk about what exactly we're getting when we get Greyhawk. So I thought it was kind of worth diving into some of the things people have been saying about this, and to kind of start by laying out what we mean, what we mean when we talk about Greyhawk. Obviously, what we really need here is to have Joe Block on to talk about this.
This is going to go on for Joe Block. Yeah,
we'll come back to this one with, and Joe's actually done some stuff talking about this. He's done some good videos. In my brief research before the show, I was watching one of the videos that Joe did on the Greyhawk Wars, which is a very controversial piece, and he was basically doing a video on how can you get rid of the Greyhawk Wars in your game.
Right.
How do you just skip that part?
Right.
So with any setting, you have kind of two histories to think about. There's the history of the game setting, the eras in game, in the story. And then there's the actual real world, our world, just publication history, and how do those coincide, and etc. So, we've got the image up here right now, of course, of the original Greyhawk. And when I say original, I don't mean like the first boxed set or the first folio. I'm talking about back in 1974 and earlier. So as all D&D fanatics who spend too much time thinking about it know, D&D originally came out as a boxed set in a little brown wood grain box that you now have to spend a used car to buy. And it contained several small books, and the first supplement to those books was Greyhawk. And it was credited to Gary Gygax and Rob Kuntz. And basically, before there was D&D, there were settings. Before D&D even existed, Dave Arneson was running a game that he called Blackmoor, which was both a game and a setting. And so Gary kind of looked at what he was doing, and he said, okay, you've got this place called Blackmoor. I'm going to have a city, and I'm going to call my city Greyhawk, and we'll do some adventuring in the ruins, in the dungeons beneath Greyhawk. And eventually that dungeon grew into a city. That city grew into a city-state. That city-state grew into an entire world in his telling. And then as D&D went on, it actually grew in terms of actual products. So back in 1980, at this point, Dungeons and Dragons is 6 years old. It's established itself. It can now take things a little more seriously. For first edition AD&D, there was a thing called the World of Greyhawk Folio. And then just a couple years later, they followed that up with the World of Greyhawk boxed set. The one that I think when most people think of Greyhawk, that's what they think of. It's the one with the big, beautiful gold box and the incredible maps by Darlene. Possibly one of the most famous pieces of tabletop role-playing art ever made. It's absolutely up there in terms of iconic status with the Afridi cover or with the demon statue with his thieves.
Gem eyes.
Right up there with all those. And that's kind of, I guess, what people would call the classic era. So that's in the world of Greyhawk. Those were the years 576 to 582. Don't remember those numbers. There will not be a test. I don't know what those years, I never think about those. But the Greyhawk setting continued to evolve. And even though players might have just kind of made their own game out of it. I mean, when you played, what did you do with Greyhawk back then?
We didn't do anything with Greyhawk. We ran the modules that were in Greyhawk or whatever, but the world was we did whatever with it. It was our world.
Yeah, I mean, we had mixed, it was a hybrid, right? But it was always nice to go to that Greyhawk box set and be like, hey, here's a bunch of kingdoms and things already set to go. Maybe you read all the long-winded bits about what weather works like in the world of Greyhawk or why the kingdom of Furiandi is different from the militocracy of whatever. But for TSR, they kept going and saying, this is a setting, this is a world, we have lore, we have things that are happening. Because one of the biggest drawbacks of a game like D&D, as opposed to, say, a book series or a movie series, is you don't have characters. You don't have a storyline inherent with the game. So when you have a setting, that gives you a chance to develop those characters and that storyline. And Gary Gygax wrote his books that were all set in Greyhawk, and of course Rose Estes and others picked up on those as well. We get then into kind of the next set, which is now with AD&D second edition. You get the Greyhawk Wars era. And they came out with a box set that was basically, it was a war game. So Greyhawk is now kind of having its identity crisis, maybe, because D&D comes from a war games setting, but it's moving on to something very different by second edition. It's now becoming now a real role-playing game, and people are making funny voices and stuff. So Greyhawk Wars is kind of reaching back into that wargaming world, but also putting it in the storyline. It goes through all of that. You've got the From the Ashes box set. You have a bunch of things like Io's the Evil and Ivid the Undying, etc. You then move on into what they call the renewal era. So kind of after the wars, what happens next? So they come out with a new player's guide to Greyhawk, and they move on to stuff like Bastion of Faith, the Scarlet Brotherhood, and you get into Living Greyhawk, and it just becomes this huge thing. We get into third edition. We're now kind of reaching the point where Wizards is about to buy Dungeons and Dragons. In fact, I think Living Greyhawk was Wizards era stuff, early 2000s.
Okay.
And then it's gone. Then it's gone because at this point there's been so many settings made. There's been so many other things that are not Greyhawk, and they had to give some things the axe. And Wizards had to decide by the early aughts what were they going to actually focus on in terms of settings. They couldn't have the 300 million settings that TSR did. It's one of the things that brought them down as a company, trying to maintain all of those. And Greyhawk got the axe. Now we jump all the way forward to 2024, 2025, 2026, where we are today. And we have a very different Greyhawk world. And they say that we're gonna bring Greyhawk back. But suddenly it means something utterly, utterly different, because Greyhawk was originally sort of this place for you to do your thing, and then it became this place for you to do TSR's thing.
Right.
And then we get into a world where Wizards is telling you how to do their thing, and now suddenly you've got not just a lot of different players, but you've got many generations of gamers who are looking at this. And if Wizards says we're bringing back Greyhawk, and they put it in the Dungeon Master's Guide, they're putting out official books on it. The question is, what Greyhawk are you going to get?
Right.
Are you going to get something that makes the old school happy, the people who are Gen X and even boomers, who are looking for that very raw, rough, do-it-yourself, high lethality, not very politically correct in a fun way,
Right.
world? It's a world where good and evil are clashing, and that's just a fundamental worldview that's difficult to maintain, in the much more nuanced settings that we have today. Or are you going to do something that makes the next generations, the millennials, the Gen Z, the Gen Alpha, happy, some of whom would rather just set up a Starbucks in every corner?
Right.
How are you going to match those two together? There's no answer to this yet. So that's why really the kind of question is, but what kind of Greyhawk? We don't know yet. So this isn't so much news as just let's look to the future and find out. I don't know what people are going to want. I don't know what I want. But it's worth calling out that we don't know what Greyhawk is. Greyhawk is back, but what does that mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it seems like it's being kind of headed up by Luke, right? I mean,
I don't know. I don't think so.
Well, I know he's doing stuff for it because I think because it says Luke Guy in my notes here, and I'm pretty sure I remember we talked about this.
Yeah,
Luke
we did.
Gygax and Wizards of the Coast have announced a new guide to Greyhawk.
Yeah,
So
they
if
have.
Luke-
So they, like I said, I think it's called Melfs because that's Melf the elf. That's Luke. But while Luke may lead the thing and write the book and everything, he's still got to work inside of two very big constraints. One is, what does Wizards want?
Right.
Because they're ultimately the publisher. But more importantly, what do the gamers want?
Right.
Because they're who Wizards kind of answers to. And that's where you've got to, I don't want to say you've got to thread a needle. And I hope that the whole idea is not to just go for maximum compromise. Having Luke there gives us one thing for sure. It means that at the very least, we'll have some sort of representation for Gary's original vision.
Right. Yep.
It won't be the same as having Gary there. Luke wasn't necessarily involved at the time. He wasn't old enough to be involved with TSR back in the day. He was a little kid, and by the time he was old enough, things had changed. And so, but on the other hand, I mean, he's Gary's son. It's not like he's ignorant of any of this stuff.
Right.
He knows what's up.
Right.
So we shall see what happens with it.
Yeah.
I actually thought Greyhawk Wars was cool, but that's Joe knows more than I do if he knows why people don't like it.
Yeah. We'll have to have him come back on and we'll talk about go over this again, but from his perspective.
Yeah, and I think it would be fun. Maybe we could just have an all Greyhawk episode. We could get Joe. We have a number of Greyhawk experts that I think would be, the Greyhawk Grognard to bring on here, AJ. Oh my gosh, I forgot. There's a third guy who's really good at this. I think it'd be fun to do an episode like that.
Yeah.
Maybe we will. We're you know what? We're on episode 92. That means if you're really, really, really advanced at math, you'll know that means 100 is coming up soon.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to do some special stuff for those episodes. So if anybody has ideas of things they'd like to see, we're bringing some different guests. I saw Joe the Lawyer's in the chat, and we're going to have him on soon. Or are we going on his thing?
We're going on his thing, but we can always have him on. I mean,
We have him here.
yeah.
So we'll have a bunch of people. So if you have some guests you'd like to see here, let us know. Maybe we'll do a Greyhawk episode for one of them. Who knows what we'll do? But this is a good idea. So
Yeah.
there you go.
All right. Couple announcements. First off, I said it before, I'll say it again. The Patreon is free this month. Everything we've put up so far is free. When it goes back at the end of the month, it's going to go back. Everything's going to go back on their levels. It's going to go back to, paying. I'm probably going to, I think I'm going to be retiring maybe the first 6 months worth of stuff into a for sale section. So they'll be cheap. They'll be like $1 or $2 or whatever. But if you join, you'll have to maybe you'll have to buy those. And I'm going to knock the Tradecraft stuff out because there's an entire manual about to hit people's mailboxes before too awful long. What else? We got ModCon coming up. You really should go to modcon.games if you're up in the
New England, basically anywhere in New England.
Yeah, New England area, and go. We would love to have you there. Franklin for the 100th. That's funny. Like that. Anything else we want to mention before we roll out?
Nah. Let's just roll out. Let's
okay.
Like us, comment on us, thumbs us up. Don't put your thumbs up us, but thumbs us up, and come and hang out in the Discord after this if you have the link, and if you don't, and you know how to reach one of us, just do that.
What is it from Hail Mary? Fist my bump. Yeah.
Yes. There we go.
So,
all right. See you all next week.
Yeah.